On to the top story we're tracking at this hour. According to the latest data released by the Union Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, youth unemployment in urban areas across India spiked to nearly 26% during the April to June quarter of 2021. It was close to 23% in the previous Jan to March quarter in 2021. In fact, Kerela topped the ranking with a maximum joblessness rate of 47%. This is in the 15 to 29-year age group. Meanwhile, the overall unemployment in India surged to 12.6% as compared to 9.3% in the previous quarter. All right, in fact, let's bring in some perspective with regard to these numbers here. Suchita Dutta, Executive Director, Indian Staffing Federation, is joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on Mirror Now. Your first assessment of the situation: yes, it is better than it was during the lockdown during 2020. Obviously, it has improved. But nonetheless, over the last 6 months, if we were to look at it, the numbers have become worse.
I seem to have lost you.
Suchita, if my voice is reaching you at this point in time, if you can take us through...
I can hear you now.
Right. Your assessment of these joblessness numbers that we are looking at?
Avni, thank you for connecting on this very important subject. In fact, I have been looking at it from 2 different angles at this point of time. One of them is that the joblessness actually is more on the employability side, which is a little different angle than I would say that there is a huge joblessness happening. In fact, staffing industry itself is seeing a continued growth of approximately 20 to 23% year-on-year growth. And while the last quarter or the last 6 months have been a little tepid because of the Omicron coming in and the second wave, etc., the migration and everything that we had seen, the exodus that we had seen in the first wave, apparently that has settled down and that's not happening anymore. The industries are picking up on the demand and the formal employment, in fact, is growing. The casual employment is reducing. And if I were to look at the entrepreneurship model or from a perspective of people who are starting themselves, that percentage may have slowed down a little. However, from a formal employment, EPFO numbers and ESIC, what we have noticed, both factors are aligned to the kind of growth that we are looking at. And we are very, very hopeful that in the coming quarters, we will see a much, much better turnout in terms of employability enhanced by the skilling programs that are taking place by the government initiatives, along with the efforts that the staffing companies are putting in to ensure there is more formal employment growth in the country.
Okay.
This goes across industries, by the way.
Okay. In terms of, the numbers that we've been seeing then from the CMI as well, which also has been talking about how the salaried jobs are getting hit and joblessness, I mean, anecdotal data, of course, which is not the same as these kind of surveys, but anecdotal data also shows that, people, a lot of the educated people are unemployed at this point in time.
I'm afraid I have a little contradictory view, not only because of the fact that the data that we are looking at, and I'm also part of the standing committee from the Ministry of Statistics, but what we look at the data is at a ground level where the migration earlier was hit, there the employability has shifted between one state to another. And that's where certain numbers had dipped and other numbers had picked up. But in terms of overall, if I were to look at it, last year has been phenomenal. In terms of employment of the salaried people, formal employment growth has been good. And I would rather say even before pre-pandemic, this industry was not in the 20s in terms of 20% growth. Our CAGR was somewhere in the range of 16 to 18%. So doing a 21 to 23% year-on-year growth is by far one of the best years of employment, formal employment that we are seeing. So there is a reduction and there is a continued reduction in the unemployment rate that is there. And we are witnessing that in practical while employing people across industries, be it the manufacturing sector, e-commerce, retail, hospitality, hospitals. Even from that matter that tourism and aviation have started picking up post the Omicron effect has come down and all our international flights are now also going to be operational from March 27. So that is a perspective that I bring from a formal staffing industry perspective.
Fair enough. And any perspective in terms of the state-wise breakup? Because once again, as per this periodic labour force survey, it shows that Kerela has seen the sharpest spike in the unemployment data, which has gone up to now 47% between April to June 2021, Chattisgarh 40%, and so on and so forth.
If I were to compare the same time frame, what the report you are referring to, that April to June time frame was the time when the second wave had hit. So in terms of the second wave, also the people who are mostly in the Kerala is also driving a lot of employment that's coming from the Middle East, and they are coming back to India, etc. So that could have been a little bit of a factor, but there was a slight slowdown because second wave, again, people were a little cautious due to the experience they had in the first wave. But if I were to look at it, eventually July onwards, situation has picked up very well, and the employment and the current scenario that we are facing in the Q3 that we ended in December 2021, we see there is a huge impact in terms of the growth in employment, and the future is really very bright. I think the coming quarters are going to be fairly much more giving a better employment opportunities to people.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us with your perspective.
Thank you so much.
Well, those are the details here as far as the joblessness data is concerned. Q1 overall unemployment stands at about 12.6%. And this is the jobs data that this is coming amid high inflation at this point in time. Basically, Kerala, Jammu Kashmir, Chhattisgarh are all the states which have seen a significant spike amongst in unemployment at this point in time. In fact, youth joblessness rose to about 26% in the first quarter. That is what this data says.